right, guys, we are continuing with part 4, digital storytelling. This is probably one of the most important parts of social media marketing. So we're going to spend a little more time today on digital storytelling. And we're actually going to do one more lecture on storytelling. But this is the second part. So let me just share. All right. So storytelling plays an important role in identifying the voice of the brand. So it's really important to create a powerful story because with a personalized approach, a powerful story can highlight the integrity of the brand, and consumers also use these stories to understand the credibility of a company's message. And also, a story's reach is determined by how effectively it is delivered and how interesting it is in the eyes of its audience. The most effective storytellers are those that incorporate their customers into the overall story. And that leads to a more lasting, meaningful relationship with the customer, because a story's details and the emotions it raises in the customer that helps you with memory retention and understand and connect to the brand. Storytelling facilitates an emotional bond that is attached to the brand in your mind through this cognitive process. And you start to remember some of the pre-existent knowledge about this brand, and it just helps you identify that brand with that story or with that kind of voice. There are a lot of different companies that have been popular with their stories. You know, they have strong storytelling. Nike is one of these examples. They have this Just Do It campaign that has inspired a lot of people. And they usually concentrate on lifestyle and fitness, you know, stories on athletics. So they are known in the customer's mind about the comfortable shoes to wear for fitness, for, you know, athletes, and so on. Patagonia has strong stories that are more about sustainability, and they can help the eco-conscious consumers relate to them and connect with them. Dove also has a powerful campaign with their storytelling. They challenge societal beauty standards, and they're focused on empowering women. So these are some exceptional brand storytelling examples. There are other ones like Hermes, for example. They focus more on their craftsmanship with their stories. So it really depends on what your focus is and what you want to be known for. Ana Maria Escobar is the creative director of Oraton, which is an Australian luxury brand. And she said, you can't design a bag anymore and just leave it there for people to buy it. You need to create a story around it. You need to place that bag where it's supposed to go or where it's supposed to live. So you can't just make a product and put it out there just for people to buy it. You have to create a story around it to impact people. Another example that I want to show you is the Like a Girl campaign by Always that started years ago. And I think it started to show some impact over the years as well. So let me open that up. So the focus of that was that the phrase "like a girl."
Okay, so I'm going to just give you some actions to do. And just do the first thing that comes to mind. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
So basically,
Show me what it
it's
looks like to fight like a girl.
focused on the phrase like a girl being used as an
Now throw
insult.
like a girl.
And they wanted to challenge that phrase, and they wanted
Aw.
to show that like a girl is not supposed to be an insult.
My
So
name
if
is
you
Dakota,
see-
and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No, I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
Is like a girl a good thing?
Actually, don't know what it really, if it's a bad thing or a good thing. Sounds like a bad thing. Sounds like you're trying to humiliate someone.
So when they're in that vulnerable time between 10 and 12, how do you think it affects them when somebody uses like a girl as an insult?
I think it definitely drops their self-confidence and really puts them down because during that time, they're already trying to figure themselves out. And when somebody says you hit like a girl, it's like, well, what does that mean? Because they think they're a strong person. It's kind of like telling them that they're weak and they're not as good as them.
And what advice do you have to young girls who are told they run like a girl, kick like a girl, hit like a girl, swim like a girl?
Keep doing it because it's working. If somebody else says that running like a girl or kicking like a girl or shooting like a girl is something that you shouldn't be doing, that's their problem. Because if you're still scoring and you're still getting to the ball on time and you're still being first, you're doing it right. It doesn't matter what they say. I mean, yes, I kick like a girl and I swim like a girl and I walk like a girl and I wake up in the morning like a girl because I am a girl. And that's not something that I should be ashamed of. So I'm going to do it anyway. That's what they should do.
If I asked you to run like a girl now, would you do it differently?
I would run like myself.
You like a chance to redo it?
Why can't run like a girl also mean win the race?
So this was their campaign that actually resonated with a lot of women. So it was a powerful storytelling. All right, let's talk about visual content because the content we create on Instagram, on TikTok, it's all visual. Like they say, a picture can be worth 1,000 words. Nowadays, a picture in social media can be worth 1 million impressions on the websites, 1 million likes. You know, it actually makes a huge impact now. In the past, we used to take photographs. We used to take them to film developers to develop our photographs before like phones and digital cameras. And now you can just take take photos of everything, any moment with your cell phone. I even take photos of my to-do lists that I create at home so that I have it with me all the time. Or you take photos of things that you want to remember. So we take a lot more pictures, a lot more photos than we used to. We have become a visual culture, and visual content engagement is the highest. So if you look at, for example, if you look at the number of users on Instagram versus Facebook, you see that Instagram is probably still the most used social media site because of that visual content, because people engage more on Instagram and it's visual and it just helps people connect a lot easier. Also, social media content moves very fast. They have a very short lifespan. So you have to capture the consumer's attention at that first contact because, you know, in a few moments, something else will become the story. And so things move very quickly and you have to reach the customer quickly with that. and there's endless online content. So customers move so quickly through them, and you have to be able to get the attention for them to stop at your story, right? Okay, we have this term hashtag. This is basically the social media moments that are trending on different social media networks. And we rely on these trends to have some kind of measurable insight about what the customers need, what they prefer, what kind of ideas or topics are more interesting to them. I looked at some of the top Instagram hashtags for the day, and this is what came up. So these are some of the top Instagram hashtags that are being used by billions of people. So these moments expose online groups or different groups to ideas, to topics, to different perspectives, and it functions as a communal platform where people who think similarly can connect with each other. So a trending social story can gain momentum on social media because of two things. One is the content. If your content is good, it's going to spread. And the second one is distribution. So people who think similarly or they like similar topics will start distributing the content through different social media networks, and that will intensify the impact of those moments. So topics that usually trend are about sports, fashion, entertainment, politics. Those topics usually trend the most because people have bigger interest on those topics and those areas. The term infographics is basically a combination of information and graphics. So you are creating information in a very visual way that is making it very easy to understand, even if it is some complex information. And it can help capture audience's attention. And the trends and hashtags can also help marketers to measure, how successful a story is or how successfully spreading an idea is on social media networks. So with infographics, you can have the data and then you create some kind of graphic, visual, informational photograph with it, and that can communicate your message more effectively. So here's an example of that. The hashtag the dress was spreading at some point. This was quite a few years ago, but this is an infographic that looks at the hashtag and gives you some information about it. For example, it says it's been 36 hours since the dress hashtag has been trending worldwide, and 16 million people shared the hashtag or the article in the first 5 hours. And they looked at different countries and they looked at how this idea was spreading in these countries. And it says within the first 15 hours, the dress hashtag reached its height in London. It talks about Twitter, and it says the top 3 related hashtags: dress, white and gold, black and blue. I don't know if you remember this dress. This was trending on Facebook and social media years and years ago. I don't know if you guys are too young to remember this, but there was this dress and everybody was discussing, is this dress blue or gold? And people couldn't agree on it because, for some people, it looked like white and gold in colors. And for some people, it looked like black and blue. And it was the way that dress was pictured or photographed. And it was interesting because some people saw the white and the gold and some people saw the black and the blue, and it just spread all over social media, and everybody started asking, do you see white and gold or do you see black and blue? And people couldn't agree on it. So it was very interesting. And this is how it spread around, and how many people tweeted the dress, and It says 56% of all Twitter mentions came from the United States, and so on. So this is an example of the infographics about that hashtag. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about the neurological responses that stories create. Okay. So when you watch a story, depending on what kind of emotions it raises in you, it can create certain hormones, release oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, depending on how the story affects you. So it helps you create an emotional connection. It also helps you remember information. When you watch a story, it may also make you remember or recognize something, and it will help you retain the story in your memory, or that will be, some kind of maybe characteristic of that brand that will stay in your mind. So that's another one. And then it also persuades you. It can help you with decision making, depending on what the message is from that brand. So there are two types of neurological responses, the affective and the cognitive. The affective responses can be, depending on what kind of emotions it raises in you, it will create endorphins, dopamine, serotonin hormones, and things like that. So if, for example, are you energized or motivated by that story? It's going to raise your adrenaline. Or does it give you goosebumps? Or does it make you laugh? Does it give you pleasure? Does it give you happiness? So those are the affective responses. And then the cognitive is, it helps you conceptualize. It helps you make logical connections. It helps you recognize and remember and interpret. Now, I'm going to show you guys a video again, and this is really interesting because it tells you how brands are using those neurological responses to impact the consumers. It is kind of scary, but I think it's really interesting.
Coke is just soda, Tylenol just acetaminophen, and Levi's are just jeans. Yet consumers go out of their way to select these specific brands over others.
An economist would say, how is this possible that a rational consumer would be willing to pay more for exactly the same thing? We love to think about ourselves as rational. That's not how it works. A very famous study done by colleagues at Duke University had flashed either the Apple logo or the IBM logo to two randomized groups of participants.
The study found that after being subliminally exposed to the Apple logo, compared to when you've been exposed to the IBM logo, participants performed better on creative tasks.
And the argument is that Apple has been telling you this story over and over again, that Apple is the brand for hip, cool, fun, creative people.
This is the true power of brands. They can influence our behavior in ways that extend way beyond the point of sale. So, to what degree can the influence of brands wreak havoc on our ability to make rational spending decisions? This is Your Brain on Money. This is Americus Reed. He studies identity and marketing at the University of Pennsylvania.
When I make choices about different brands, I'm choosing to create an identity. When I put that shirt on, when I put those shoes on, those jeans, that hat, someone is going to form an impression about what I'm about. So if I'm choosing Nike over Under Armour, I'm choosing a kind of different way to express affiliation with sport. The Nike thing is about performance. The Under Armour thing is about the underdog. I have to choose which of these different conceptual pathways is most consistent with where I am in my life.
And once a consumer makes that choice, their relationship with a brand can deepen to the point where they identify with the brand like family. And once you identify with a brand, it can shape the way you behave.
And it's really interesting because they will also, if someone talks bad about that product, brand, or service, they will be the first to go out and defend. Why? Because an attack on the brand is an attack on themselves.
Michael Platt is a professor of neuroscience, marketing, and psychology whose research demonstrates how our perception of brands influences our decisions.
There's an idea in marketing, which is that we relate to brands in the same way we relate to people. It's like, I love this brand or I hate this brand. Of course, what people say, right, can often be different from what's really going on in their heads. So we thought, well, why don't we just ask the brain directly?
Michael and his team observed the brains of iPhone users and Samsung Galaxy users with an MRI machine while they heard good, bad, and neutral news about Apple and Samsung.
Apple customers showed a brain empathy response toward Apple. It was exactly what you'd see in the way you would respond to somebody in your own family.
Strangely, Samsung users didn't have any positive or negative responses when good or bad news was released about their brand. The only evidence that Samsung users showed was reverse empathy for Apple news, meaning if the Apple headline was negative, their brain reflected a positive response.
You know, it really shows us that Apple has completely defined the market here. Samsung customers, it seems from their brain data, are only buying Samsung because they hate Apple.
The kicker? The Samsung users didn't report feeling the results their MRIs showed. What was happening in their brains and what they reported feeling towards Apple and Samsung were totally different.
Most people just don't realize that they are subconsciously choosing brands because those brands have some kind of self-expressive value.
You can see there's a lot of power here in terms of shaping consumers' decisions. As we learn more and more about that, we have to think much more deeply about the ethical, legal, and societal implications of doing that.
So as consumers, what can we do to make informed choices? Well, the best thing we can do is be aware of the influence that brands hold.
I think it's important to always pause and think a little bit about, okay, why am I buying this product?
And like it or not, brands aren't going anywhere.
I've heard lots of people push back and say that I'm not into brands. I take a very different view. They're not doing anything any different than what someone who affiliates with a brand is doing. They have a brand. It's just an anti-brand brand. When I think about what is it that I've learned about identity over time, I think a lot of it has to do with the fundamental need that we as humans have to have support systems. Perhaps it was the church, it was the community, it was these other institutions that existed. Now brands have stepped in as pillars of our identity. So I'm very much motivated to see that in that positive light.
So this is a different take on brands. It's kind of from the other side of the story, but you can see how much impact a brand can have on consumers if they use the stories in the right way. All right, so we're not done with the digital storytelling, but I'm going to finish it up here and we'll continue with storytelling a little bit more in our next lecture.